assure you that we seem to be on the right way, unlike the other people who are full of themselves and think that the only way. When we were busy in our political struggles, they would come and ask me, are you pro-East or pro-West? I look at these people. Sometimes I would want to use bad words, but I would restrain myself and say, do you think I'm an idiot? I am pro myself, I'm not pro anybody. Instead of wasting, I really feel sorry for some of these people. They come to lecture, you lecture me, you don't know what you are talking about.
Good evening, Africa. Good evening to the continent's sons and daughters, wherever you're watching us from tonight. The winds of change are sweeping across our continent louder, bolder, and more unapologetic than ever before. And once again, the sound of defiance is coming from East Africa. In a stunning and uncompromising statement made earlier this week, President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda sent shockwaves across the diplomatic and geopolitical world by declaring, "We will kick out the West one by one," a line both sharp and deliberate, a signal not of isolation but of sovereignty reclaimed. President Museveni, who has long been known for his frank and unfiltered approach to foreign policy, made it clear that Uganda is no longer willing to bow to external pressure, particularly from former colonial powers and Western financial institutions. But what exactly prompted such a bold declaration? The answer is layered, rooted in decades of post-colonial relationships, aid conditionalities, resource exploitation, and the subtle but suffocating grip of Western influence on African governance. Over the years, Uganda, like many African nations, has been subject to foreign dictates that come wrapped in the language of partnership and development aid. But behind the generous words often lies a political leash: do this or lose funding. Pass that policy or risk sanctions. Museveni, who has now been in power for nearly 4 decades, is signaling that those days are over. In his own words, he declared that Uganda is ready to chart its own course, forge new alliances that respect its sovereignty, and build a future based not on begging but on strength, resources, and unity with fellow African nations. This isn't just rhetoric. Uganda has already begun strengthening ties with China, Russia, and other non-Western players, seeking alternative paths to development that don't come with lectures about democracy, values, or threats of aid withdrawal. And let us be honest, Museveni's tone, while controversial, reflects a growing sentiment across Africa, one we've seen echoed by leaders like Mali's Assimi Goïta, Burkina Faso's Ibrahim, and Niger's General Chiani. They are all saying, enough is enough. Enough of being lectured, enough of signing away mineral wealth, enough of watching African youth suffer while trillions are extracted from under their feet. What Museveni is voicing is not just Uganda's frustration, it is Africa's collective exhaustion. And while his methods or politics may divide opinion, the message of reclaiming Africa's dignity is striking a deep chord among millions. Now, it is important to note, this is not a call to isolation, this is a call to respect, equality, and partnership on Africa's terms. A demand that if the West wishes to engage, it must do so not as a master, but as a partner. From trade to military presence, from aid to cultural influence, the era of unchecked Western dominance in Africa is being challenged, and President Museveni just turned up the volume. In the days ahead, diplomats will react, there will be outrage. In certain corners, there will be applause in others. But one thing is certain, Africa is no longer silent, its leaders are rising, its youth are awake, and the conversation has shifted from dependency to defiance, from aid to agency, and from occupation to ownership. As this story continues to unfold, we will dive deeper into Uganda's foreign realignment, the economic drivers behind this shift, and how this bold stance could reshape Africa's relationship with the world. Because this is not just Uganda's story, this is Africa's new voice. And tonight it is loud, clear, and unafraid. Stay with us. I'm your presenter, and this is Africa Unfiltered.
Welcome to Talk of Africa 360, your source for insightful news, analysis, and thoughtful commentary. If you value informed perspectives and fact-based reporting, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is based on reliable public sources and credible online information. It is intended strictly for educational and analytical purposes. We do not promote or endorse political violence, hate speech, or any form of discrimination. Our goal is to inform, not to inflame. Thanks for being here. Let's stay informed together.
In a short time, but we should have it on the radar screen as our aim. In order to do that, we go back to our principles of NAM. And those principles, the Bandung principles, really start with humility, to be humble, not to think that what you think is the only way of doing things. In other language, we call that subjectivism. When you just think that what you think is the only way of doing things. The opposite of subjectivism is objective thinking. Objective thinking means you deal with situations the way they are, not the way they should be in your head. We who have spent, I have spent about 60 years, more than 60 years, engaged in the political resistance in Africa here. And in those years, we have been studying all these events in the whole world, actually. And we have got some good idea. If you look at the 500 years from the time of the Renaissance in Europe, even if you don't go back to the earlier periods, you'll find that ideas were coming, new ideas, then people discover better ways of thinking. We started off with Bullionism. There was a thinking in Europe that Bullionism is the correct way of building wealth. That is gold, getting gold and silver. And some of the countries did that a lot, but they ended up being not developed. I don't want to mention individual countries. Therefore, after some time, it became clear that Bullionism was not the source of wealth. Then there were some thinkers in France who talked of they were called physiocrats. Physiocrats believed that wealth was only in agriculture. That if you emphasize agriculture, you will be prosperous. But after some time, a man called Adam Smith came along and wrote his book in the year 1776 entitled The Source of the Wealth of Nations. Where does the wealth of nations come from? And he was able to show that by private effort, free enterprise, by specialization and exchange, you can create wealth for the country. He was more correct than the others, Adam Smith. Then Karl Marx came and said, no, private property is the source of all evil. We should get rid of private property and collectivize wealth. He had some good points in central planning, but obviously there were also some philosophical mistakes in his position. Now, Adam Smith helped certain Europe to move forward, but something else came up which he had not foreseen. This was the issue of the market. If you produce, who buys? If you produce and nobody buys, or very few people buy, you will not continue. That's how you got to the crisis in Europe of 1929, the collapse of the capitalist system, the depression. That's how now another thinker, Maynard Keynes, came along and said, you people, you forget the issue of aggregate demand. That even if you give money, free money to people in their pockets, they buy what is produced, it will help the economy. That's how the idea of the welfare state came, where to give money to people even when they are doing nothing. Now you can see just in that period, so many ideas coming, going, coming, going. This is the correct way. Instead of wasting, I really feel sorry for some of these people. They come to lecture, you lecture me, you don't know what you are talking about. So therefore, now, I'm glad we are all here. I want to assure you that we seem to be on the right way, unlike the other people who are full of themselves and think that the only way is the way they think. When we were busy in our political struggles, they would come and ask me, are you pro-East or pro-West? I look at these people. Sometimes I would want to use bad words, but I would restrain myself and to say, do you think I'm an idiot? I am pro myself, I'm not pro anybody. Why would you not have it in your head that this man or this group of people are pro their own interest? Why would you think that my job is to be pro this one or the other one, and I have no other job except that? That's really incredible shallowness. Therefore, it's good that this movement has been going on. We have the capacity to solve many of these problems if we cooperate among themselves. Because remember, we have been saying that wealth comes from producing goods and services and selling them. Now that means three things. Number one, investment to produce the goods or the services. A factory, a hotel, a transport business, that is either good or service produced. And we can cooperate here. Those people with some surplus capital can invest in our countries, and we produce goods and services, which means that the NAM governments must create conducive atmosphere for investments to take place. The NAM countries also sometimes make mistakes. Like here in Uganda. Uganda was moving very well in the 1960s. Then we had a man called Idi Amin. I don't know whether you heard of him. He was a soldier, a British soldier, poor, no education. He came and took over the government. We decided to fight him. But in a very short time, he expelled our Asians. There were Asian people who had come from Asia and settled here, especially India, Pakistan. This property here, this is a joint venture between the government and one of those people. one of our Indian origin people. Idi Amin expelled all this. And yet they were a very active investment group. They were in sugar, they were in hotels, they were in steel production. So here you had a leader of a NAM country undermining his own economy. So therefore, it is very crucial that we study very carefully the issue of the investment climate in our respective countries. When we kicked out all these people and we came into government, we brought back, we gave back the properties of our Asian citizens and non-citizens that Idi Amin had taken. We gave them back. We had a hot debate in Parliament. Some people saying this, some other. We said no, they must get back their properties. And they got their properties. And this one here is one of those people who came back as soon as he heard that we had given him. He came back he was in London. He came back here. And the other day I was asking our people, how many factories have been built by our Indian returnees? They told me 900 factories they had built since they came back. So this is one front line of struggle. The atmosphere for investors to produce goods and services using the raw materials we have in our respective countries. Now, once you produce a good or a service, then the next challenge is who buys what you produce. Somebody must buy it, and buy it in big quantities so that you continue expanding. That's why there is the internal market. Like Uganda here, we are a population of 46 million people, so they buy. But the internal market of Uganda is not enough. That's why we need the regional market, integration in East Africa, in Africa, so that we deal with the issue of the market regionally and nationally. But internationally, since we are members of the same group of countries with similar interests, we should promote trade among ourselves. Because when I buy from you, I'm supporting your prosperity. And when you buy from me, you are supporting my prosperity. And we shall, I don't know how the Secretariat is organized of NAM and on the G77 to bring ideas of how we can promote and expand interstate trade among the NAM countries. We, the Africans, have been supporting, we, the Ugandans here, have been supporting the prosperity of others from our pockets by buying what they produce. You hear that I have been around for a long time. By 1962, when Uganda got independence, I was 18 years old, and I was already active as a youth, and I was following everything. At that time, we were buying British products because we were a British colony. We would buy British cars, Bedfords, Morris Minor, Austin. I remember those vehicles. Range Rover, only British vehicles, British-made vehicles. When we got independence, our leaders started importing vehicles from France, the Peugeots, from Germany, the Mercedes-Benz, but especially from Japan. And we have been buying a lot of vehicles from Japan. But Japan are not wise traders. I told them, so you Japanese, we are enriching you with our pockets. We are buying your vehicles. All clans of Japanese vehicles are here. Pajero, I don't know which clan, the other clan, Mitsubishi. Why don't you come and assemble at least these vehicles in Uganda? They were not interested. Okay. I see you want to take blood from me. You don't want to give some blood to me. Now, we are making our own vehicles. I don't know whether these people can show those vehicles on this screen here. Have you got those pictures or you have failed? All those vehicles are electric vehicles being made by our people. And that's one of the factories where they are made. Now, my Japanese people came and said, no, we want to assemble vehicles here. Say, too late, sorry. I'm no longer interested in assembling. I now only want manufacturing here. If you don't want that, bye-bye. Those are now so therefore, the NAM countries should not be part of this blindness, thinking that I should only buy from you, you buy nothing from me. You should be the one I was telling the Japanese, since we are buying your vehicles, you should be coming here to even invest, for instance, in value addition for agriculture. Okay, I buy your vehicles, but you also help me in manufacturing cereals, manufacturing process, adding value to coffee, and so on. No, they are not bothered. Not bothered. This is not a good way. So, number one, production of a good or a service. Number two, buying, marketing from one another. But number three, you cannot link the producer of the good and the service to the consumer without infrastructure. You need infrastructure. You need roads, you need the railway, you need the ports, you need the airlines to link the producer and the consumer. So all these are opportunities, areas of opportunities for all our NAM countries and the group of 77, who account for 80% of the population of the world. His Excellency Antonio Guterres has talked about financing. We are going to intensify our discussions with the...
As reactions continue to pour in from across the continent, one thing is clear. Africa is demanding respect, sovereignty, and accountability. Was this just a diplomatic misstep or a deeper sign of shifting global alliances? We'll be watching closely. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, unfiltered African news.
Do you think I'm an idiot?
This is Talk of Africa 360, telling the stories that matter.